My name is Samaya. Since you're doing well, I won't ask how you are. I'm originally from Narayanganj, Bangladesh, but now I live in New York. My husband and I always listen to your stories, and today I thought of sending in one of our own. This incident happened to my husband back in his village home, which is in Dohar, Nawabganj. He told me the story just as I'm about to tell you now. When he was young, he visited his aunt's house in Bangladesh. One evening, he and his friends were playing outside near the house. The area around the house had a lot of trees, and in front of the house there was a small pond with a large hijal tree next to it. His aunt and mother were sitting on the porch cutting vegetables while they played. Suddenly, my husband saw something unusual, a ball of fire, like a glowing pot, floating through the sky. Startled, he and his friends began following it. The fiery orb moved toward the pond and approached the large hijal tree. To their horror, they watched as the tree began to split apart. Frightened, they called out to their mothers and aunts, who rushed over. When the elders arrived, they too saw the tree, split into two halves, and the fireball slowly entered the tree before disappearing into it. As if by magic, the tree merged back together like nothing had ever happened. Everyone saw it, both the children and the adults, and they were all terrified. However, nothing else happened after that. This event left a deep impression on him, but what's even stranger is that he saw the same phenomenon again years later. This time, it was after we got married, during the pandemic lockdown. We were in Bangladesh, and one evening he and his friends were hanging out in an open field, just chatting. It was just before dusk. Suddenly, they spotted the same kind of fireball in the sky, the same glowing pot-like fire he had seen as a child. They watched as it flew across the sky, clearly visible due to its brightness. As my husband saw it, memories of the past incident came rushing back. But he wasn't the only one to witness it this time. His friends saw it too, as it floated past them in the sky. I don't know how frightening this might sound, but it's definitely a strange and awe-inspiring event. A massive tree splitting in two, with a ball of fire entering and vanishing into it. It's truly baffling to me. There are many other small incidents like this that we've experienced as well. Thank you for listening. Let me take you into this story. It happened exactly 2 months ago today. One of my friends has always been fascinated by parapsychology. He loves researching it and has read countless thesis papers and books on various paranormal events. He's also a regular listener of Boot FM. But here's the thing, he's never been able to experience any of these phenomena himself. For 3 years, he's been researching this field, but never had a real personal encounter. He's the type of person who doesn't believe in something until he experiences it firsthand. His intense curiosity seemed to finally draw something to him. This is something I learned from his experience, that if we attract negative energy, it will certainly find us. So exactly 2 months ago, my friend went on a trip with his colleagues to a popular tourist spot. They stayed at a nearby hotel, which, I must mention, had no prior history of anything paranormal. My friend likes to sleep alone, so he booked a private room. The incident happened on the second night of their trip. It was late at night, around 2 a.m. My friend suddenly woke up from his sleep, feeling as though someone had placed a hand on top of his. As he lifted his hand, he saw a scratch mark on it. He was sure that this mark hadn't been there before. It wasn't just a simple scratch, it was deep, like it had cut through the flesh, but strangely, there was no blood. He sat up, feeling a bit alarmed, but not in pain. He went to the bathroom, and that's when he started hearing something, soft whispers, gradually getting closer to his ears. At this point, he began to feel scared, but at the same time, he was excited. For the first time, he was experiencing something supernatural. But what he didn't realize was how terrifying it was about to become. He glanced behind him, expecting to see something, but there was nothing there. He stepped out of the bathroom and looked around the room, still nothing. But then he noticed something odd. His pillow, which had been on the bed, was now lying on the floor about 10 meters away. This is when he felt it. Something was in the room with him. The whispering in his ears grew louder, closer, and more persistent. It was almost unbearable. Trying to stay calm, he drank a glass of water and lay back down, pretending to sleep. He thought that if he acted asleep, he might be able to see whatever it was that was haunting his room. But things took a turn for the worse. The whispering became so loud that he could no longer control himself. He suddenly blacked out. When he regained consciousness, he found his colleagues standing around him, worried. They had used a duplicate key to open the door and found him unconscious on the floor. But that wasn't all. There were red marks on his neck, as if someone had been choking him. His hands had scratch marks, his legs were bruised. Alarmed by his condition, they rushed him to the nearest hospital, where he remained unconscious for 16 hours. When he finally woke up, he had no recollection of what had happened to him that night. He didn't feel any physical pain, but the whispering voices were still vivid in his mind. It was as if someone had been trying to warn him not to delve too deeply into things beyond our understanding. For the next month, he was in a state of trauma, plagued by terrifying nightmares that were filled with threats. Since then, he has stopped his research into the paranormal. For the past month, he's been fully recovered and has returned to his normal life. This story may sound ordinary to you, especially since it didn't happen to you, but to my friend, it was a deeply disturbing experience. The lesson here? Sometimes it's best not to dig too deeply into things that are beyond our comprehension. Some doors are meant to stay closed. Too much curiosity about the supernatural can bring you face to face with the very things you should avoid. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Rivon, and I hope you're all doing well tonight. I'm doing great as well, feeling thankful to be here with you. It's already late, and I promise not to keep you for too long, but to be honest, I don't feel like letting you go just yet. Throughout the week, I wait for this very moment to be here with you all. Many of you have told me to talk less, but if my chatter ever bothers you, feel free to let me know in the comments, even if it means roasting me. I can take it. But I'll do my best to keep my talking in check tonight and dive straight into the story. So, let's move on to our next tale. This is a story shared by Masood Shikdar. His home is in a village in Kapasia, Ghazipur, near Dhaka. For personal reasons, he preferred not to disclose the name of his village. The event happened to one of his brothers from the village, who had a mental disability and was also mute. One evening, we were all sitting together on a raised platform, chatting, when suddenly we saw this brother approaching us from down the road. At first, we didn't think anything of it. He came and sat quietly with us. He didn't say or do anything, just sat there, motionless, without moving a muscle for about 4 or 5 minutes. Then, just as quietly as he had arrived, he got up and left. We still didn't think anything of it. A couple of days later, we heard that this brother had fallen gravely ill. He couldn't eat anything without vomiting it up, and his body had become frail, shrinking to almost nothing. Naturally, we went to visit him, and what we saw sent chills down our spines. His entire body was covered in strange black marks. His skin was blotched with black spots that we couldn't understand. Doctors were consulted, but even they couldn't explain what was happening to him. Some people speculated that it might have been bee stings, but there was no real answer. None of the treatments worked. It was as if no one knew what to do. Finally, out of desperation, his family decided to consult a local healer, a Kabiraj. The Kabiraj came and inspected him closely. After a moment, he turned to us and said something that made our blood run cold. He said, "Do you remember when he sat with you all for those 4 or 5 minutes? When he left, he must have walked a certain path. Let me describe it to you." He started describing the road he must have taken. About 20 paces ahead, there was a large banyan tree, and about 50 meters from there was an old graveyard. To the left was a field of crops, and to the right was a line of bamboo trees. The Kabiraj told us that as this brother was passing near the graveyard, an evil Jinn was sitting in the fields nearby and saw him. The Jinn attacked him, thrashing him 2 or 3 times into the field. Now, there's an old belief that people with mental disabilities often possess extra strength, and according to the Kabiraj, it was that extra strength that had saved his life. Otherwise, the Jinn would have killed him right there. The healer performed some rituals, blessed some water, and left. But despite this, the brother's condition didn't improve. He continued to waste away, becoming thinner and thinner. Then, one day, we received the tragic news. he had passed away in the hospital. We still don't know exactly what happened or how he died. The doctors couldn't explain it, and neither could the Kabaraj. All we know is that something out of the ordinary, something beyond our understanding, had taken place. That's the end of my story, Russellby. If you liked it, please select it for the show, and I have another story ready to share if you do. Welcome back. It's me, Rivon, still here with you, and I hope you're all still hanging in there with me. Your support gives me the courage to keep going, and as long as you stay with me, I'll find the motivation to keep moving forward. Without dragging this out too much, I was about to dive into our next story. But no, it looks like we've come to the end of tonight's show. Yes, it's time to say goodbye for today. If I made any mistakes or said too much, please forgive me. I'll try my best to speak less and get straight to the point next time, because that's what matters, right? Actions speak louder than words. If you want to send story email to putalap@gmail.com. So with that, I'll take my leave for tonight. Stay well, stay healthy, and most importantly, stay with Shadows of the Unknown.